Hello there, Roger. Sorry for the problems, but it said waiting on me no matter where I went to. I'm on my computer, I was on my phone. I cannot find any. I mainly just wanted to let everybody know I was doing it, obviously, the time. So, but hopefully everybody switches over to this. How you doing, Jimmy? Oh, hold on. Let me see. Is everybody having a problem hearing me? Let me see here. Can everybody hear me okay? It looks like it's on. Hold on, let me see something here. All right, give me 1 second. Oh, you can hear me, Scott? Okay, that's strange. So it must not be me. All right, that's weird. Check and make sure that you don't have mute on or the other ones. Oh, okay, good. Sorry. Yeah, they certainly don't make this easy. All right. Well, I can't do much about the network fluttering. Hopefully that'll fix it up. I am going through Wi-Fi on my laptop, so that might affect it just a little bit. So, hello everyone. Hi Scott. Hi John. I'm Mark. David. All right. So, like I said, I'm going to be doing a test of this. Obviously, I got to work out some kinks and bugs. I'm going to do a little more research. I'm still going to do this one, of course, but I'm going to do a little more research for the final one. And if it works out good, I'll definitely want to do this again a little bit in the future, just for the idea that I can get some live interaction. Not sure how good the video is going to be. I'm using a little connected one on USB. Let me kind of show you here. I have my command sphere here. That's not too bad. All right, there we go. I also have the separate pod on the arm here, which I'll plug in here in a moment and show you how that looks. And what I did was I temporarily wired in the remote control sensor into the power supply and the lights. I just have the cockpit in here right now, obviously, and not the pod bay. So let me kind of show you. It's hard to see it, but that little teeny bit there at the bottom is where the sensor is. And this is from Evan Designs, and I've used these in most of my models. I really love them a lot. They're quite easy to set up. They just have two wires, a red and a black for the power, a red and a black for the lights, and then a little sensor that comes out on some wires, and then you position it somewhere where the sensor can reach it, or the remote control can reach the sensor, and it has a really good range, and they sell these with it. So all I have to do then is turn on the on switch, and it comes on. And a bright feature. So for purposes of this video, what I can do is dim it down. Okay. Oh, there we go. So actually it shows up a little better on the camera. Let that focus. See the back hallway there a little better. Oops. There we go. Sorry. Much control over this little camera. It's just a USB camera attaches to my computer. Come on, get in here. Sorry, I'm getting used to the orientation of it. There are the controls. Now I did notice something, and I wouldn't normally keep this at a low dim setting, but the color changing LEDs just stay one color when I have it on the dim power. When I turn it up to the full brightness, they start to change. But then at full brightness, obviously it's going to wash out the white in it. Now, in the pictures I took and the things, the like little videos that I showed, it looks a lot more blue on the camera than it really is. The back hallway, of course, is bright white, and the front cockpit lights on the side are actually, that looks a little realistic right there. I just have them a really faint kind of a blue, because if you look at some of the images from the film, the lights on the side of the cockpit are a little different. They have more of a bluer tinge to them. But overall, it has like that white in the center, and then it just has a little bit of a dimmer pale blue in the cockpit part. And yeah, Kevin, you wouldn't need to dim it down at all. You would keep it at regular brightness. I was only dimming it down because it helps to look better in the camera, because the camera doesn't like the bright lights. It doesn't want to adjust to it. But it's a nice feature, because I have had some kits that were just too bright, and so it was nice to be able to dim the lights down a bit on it, since otherwise you're pretty much stuck with however the brightness is on there. So, and I'm noticing on the video that everything is backwards. It must just be the way that this films. I'm sure there's a way for me to switch it, but I'm not sure how to. But the little Frank figure there, he's in the left side, not in the right side of the cockpit. That's what's kind of throwing me off, because I'm looking at the video and I'm moving the camera, and if I move it to the right, it goes to the left, and vice versa, obviously. So there's the little figure of Frank in his yellow spacesuit. All right, so then you can see the different panels of gray that I painted using the Aztec dummies masking set, which I really highly recommend. Honestly, I'm not sure of any other masking set that's available for this kit, but his masking set is a must-have. If you're gonna paint this ship, you really should use the masking set. Definitely, it's involved in some work, but in the end, it yields a fantastic result. And those of you who also subscribe to Lou Del Masso, and I recommend it. He's the one that owns Aztec Dummy. It's his business, and he makes the mask sets. He's doing masks right now on his current model. He's doing 2 versions of the Star Trek Voyager at the same time. and he's doing some extensive math. He's creating the mask for it, basically, which is what he does, and then he'll be selling a set for them. So, but he was doing a similar approach where he talked again about the idea that that he does the stark contrast colors, and then he comes back and blends them. And he did a little better job of describing it than I did, because somebody asked me on YouTube, they said, why don't I just paint the various colors of gray that I want it to be at the end? And you could do that, but the problem is you're not going to find pre-done paints that are that close in shade. You'd have to customize them. And then even if you did, they would be so close in color that there'd still be some definition between them, and it wouldn't look the same. The beauty about the blending coat is you don't have to worry about getting them that close. You can do the stark differences, and then you just come back in the end and you just mist a very, very light gray over it, and it brings it all up and it blends it all together, and it looks natural. It gives it more of a natural look as to a ship that would be weathered, and it wasn't painted with different color panels. The panels just aged and weathered at different rates, and were added or built onto the ship at different times. So it just gives it a greater scale to it if you're looking at some different color panels in it. So all right, let me go ahead and put the camera back on my computer. All right, so I'm going to connect on the little mini pod, and I'll show you how that's going to look. I'll have to take the top off to do that. But does anybody have any questions at this point that they'd like to ask, or any comments or anything you'd like to know about the build so far? So obviously the top comes off, and I have the wiring coming down, which has a disconnect. So that, and I'm basically telling Kevin, by the way, Kevin Newman in the chat, he's my client. So he's the one I'm making this model for. So if he makes some comments about it that, like he had mentioned about keeping it lights on, that's because it's going to be his here shortly. So the wire going to the top, I have just one wire coming up, and I have this little connect that unplugs. You just have to be careful when you plug it together. It goes in either way. You have to make sure that the red and the black are matched up. So you want to be careful doing that. This is the model kit from Mobius. This is the Mobius 1/144 scale mark. And obviously this is just the command sphere. I completed the spine and the propulsion unit. Those are all done. The pod bay is also done. I just have to trim up the wires and install that in the bottom of the ship. So here's the bottom of the ship for right now. The top goes on with magnets, so it is removable. There's a little sensor in the back for the remote control. I just have a AA battery holder in the bottom right now. Yes, this is a commission build. I actually started this about a year ago, and Kevin understood I was building other things at the same time too, and also we had worked on different models. I 3D printed some models that I had also done for Kevin, and he was building them too. So he understood that this would be a long-term project. But my original one took 6 months, so it's definitely taken a lot longer. But then again, I was doing other things, and building other things at the same time. So, all right. So what I have is another connector that is for the external pod, and that goes through this little hole right here on the side. And I have 4 other little holes that these little pins correspond to. And I just made this up myself using some styrene and some brass tubes and an aluminum tube for the actual pod. So all the wiring goes through to this little end of the connector, and that connects into this other one. But what I have to do first is feed it through the center hole, line up the 4 pins. You have to kind of do them at an angle with the ship, and it's a little tricky, but once you get the hang of it, it goes in pretty good. There we go. All right. And then just press it in. It doesn't have to go in all the way. And it's really sturdy. It holds it in place on the ship. You know, and again, it's removable. If you don't want to display it without on the ship, you can take it off. It's not that heavy, Eddie. The ship itself is just all styrene plastic, so it's pretty light. A lot of people talk about this being a really big model. It's really not a big model. It's a really long model, but it's not big in its sense. I mean, this is one of the biggest pieces, and you can see it's not that big in the propulsion unit. Now, the interior is made up of resin, from resin kits, 2 of them. One's from Green Strawberry, one is from Stargazer, the pod bay. I mean, the cockpit is from Stargazer. And those have a little bit of weight to them. So when they're all in there and the battery is in there, it's not that much. It's maybe 1 or 2 pounds. It's really not that bad. Oh, well, thank you very much, Mark. I will say, and I did want to mention, I have talked on Messenger with the creator of this little pod. He goes by the name Falconware on Shapeways. Shapeways is not a seller of 3D printed models. They are like a clearinghouse. When you buy something, they're creators. Any creator who creates their own files can go to Shapeways and put their product on there for sale. I'm sure Shapeways gets a cut of it. But what happens is you go and you purchase it, and then Shapeways prints it out. They're just a print farm, and they ship it out, and then it says it's reconnecting. So if I cut off for a second, give me a moment here. Is everybody still there? Can you hear me? Okay, good. It said that it was reconnecting. So, all right. So I was just connecting the 2 wires together with the quick connect on there. Just make sure they work. There we go. Okay. All right. It's not at all. It just has, one side has the 2 female pins, one side is the male. They just click right in. It's a solid click, but it's not like really hard to click. It's pretty easy. But obviously you want to be careful because you don't want to be breaking off these claws. So just be careful with that, Kevin. These claws are the 3D printed ones. They have a lot of detail from the Falconware ones. So the nice thing is, though, since it's all connected onto this piece here, when this comes off, you can just set it down and it's protected. It's not touching anything. So if you do have to sit it down somewhere, you know, it's pretty much protected. But just be careful because they could be broken off, and also the little figure as well. So, all right, let me go ahead and put this back onto the ship, and then we'll be good to go. We'll test that. Hold on a second. Okay. Oops. Okay, there we go. The top, all of the lights for the top will come down into one connector. The red and the black are together. There's not two separate connectors for red and black. The top has a separate red and black together in a connector that goes into the external pod. So when you plug this in, you have to plug the wires from this into that part in the top. But you can disconnect all of the wiring from the whole top section and take it off of the ship. So if it makes it easier, you don't have to. There's going to be enough play in it. You'll be able to take it off. And really, you don't need to take the top off unless you're either connecting this on or you're changing the batteries. But other than that, there's no reason to do that. It'll work just fine. So, but the pod, of course, like I said, is wired into all of the power, just like the rest of the ship will be. So when I turn on the remote, it's also going to turn on the pod. It's going to be hard to get in close on that. There we go. All right, the interior is lit up, as you can see, and the lights, the headlights. And then because turn it the other way, because the aluminum tube is painted black, if you put this up against a space background, it's going to be fairly not visible. And then you'll just see the pod out in front. Thanks, Kevin. So you have other options too, obviously, as we had talked about. This front door, and well, it's going to be reversed, but the left door both come off. And this left door, you're going to have an extendable pod, which is going to also have lights. It doesn't have an interior, but it has lights. The center one is going to be able to view obviously the pod bay. You'd be able to see that very well if you didn't have that door there. This door over here, which is again the right one, here's the airlock, doesn't come off. This one's glued in place, and the pod behind it is glued in place because we never really see that one coming off. So the idea is that you can either have all of these at once going on while you display it, which I would probably do, or if you wanted to, you could put the doors on and just display it this way. If you're doing the scene where Hal won't open the pod bay doors, open the doors, Hal. Oh, and Kevin, I'm going to make sure that I install a Hal that does open the doors. I went through a couple versions. They just kept refusing to open the door, and I'm like, you know what, you're done. You could just have a pod extended, or you could have the pod extended and have the middle door off and look inside. You know, do all three at the same time, that sort of thing. So all right. And if it's in a darker setting, you can actually see the headlights of the pod kind of reflecting off of the front of the ship. Just kind of hits it right about here, which is kind of cool. Gives a little more realism. But other than that, that looks pretty sweet. Turn that off. Okay. All right, so right now the only thing I have to do is finish checking. Yeah, what I did, Mark, is these pod doors are just like pressure fit. They're not held on in any real way, but they stay on pretty good. I have a piece of metal glued on behind them. I may put a magnet because they're still not strong enough, but if you put a magnet on it, they just come off. Or if you take like a thin piece of plastic and just stick it in the edge, you can just pop it out. But yeah, the doors just come off. One of the features of the Stargazer kit, which is really cool, is that it included resin versions of this outer ring with the grooves in it, which one of the flaws of the Mobius kit is that they built that into the door, which is a real pain in the neck, because either you have to show the door open with no ridges, which is really stupid, it doesn't look that way, or what I had to do in my original one is take a pole saw and gently cut around and cut that ridge off and glue it into the kit. I don't know why they didn't make that part of the kit, but really amazingly done. He said it took him many months to design that, which I believe him, because it's really, really intricate, a really well done pod. So the pod bay I completed late last year, actually. Oh, doesn't tell me that I'm buffering. I'll give it a second here. Let me know when it starts up again, or can you hear me now? Come on, YouTube. Is it working? Oh, that's really weird. Hold on a second. Still buffering. Well, if you can hear me, I'll still keep going on. Let me know when it starts working again. But so the pod bay, when I made it, I didn't trim down all the wires, so it's got a lot of wires coming out of it. Let me show you real quick here. So you can see all the spaghetti wires. So I have to trim these all down, combine them all together, and basically do what I did on the pod, or the cockpit. I will be doing one more video that will show finishing up the cockpit and the pod bay and putting them into the ship. I just want to do a live stream to do the final reveal, going over the model and that kind of thing. So, but here's the pod bay. And what I'll end up doing is all of these wires will be combined down into just 2 wires that will go into, oh, sorry. Yeah, somebody said they refresh. Try doing that. If you just have to refresh it, like close out and reopen it, that seems to get it working again. And then this will be glued into the bottom, and then all the wiring obviously going into the power supply through the sensor. This has quite a few lights and LEDs in it also, obviously. All right, so I take it everybody can see it moving again. It's not buffering. Really good set. I did it. I wasn't crazy about their cockpit, only because it was way too tiny. It was not really accurate in scale, and it was all photo etch. It wasn't any kind of resin, which I don't know why they didn't, since they made such a fantastic resin version of the pod bay, which is kind of strange. But I recommend the Paragraphics cockpit if you're going to do that, or if you get the green strawberry one, this one here. I did a lot of augmenting myself onto it, as far as lighting up the maintenance corridor, the Athena room, or the lab area on the side. And I use some color changing bulbs in this as well. I can't plug it in because all the wires are separate right now. so I wouldn't be able to, it would be a pain to try to wire them all together during this video. But quite a bit of lights, obviously. The workbench in the center, the display changes colors. The little screens in the Athena room, screens change colors. Obviously, it lights up inside. You have the other little lights in there, so pretty cool. All right. So I'll be working on that this week, getting those wires all trimmed down, getting it fitted into the pod. Not a ton of room in there with these two sets. I had to do a little bit of adjustment to get them to fit in there because of some of the light boxes that I had made, and just trim them down a bit. But they do work, and obviously, and they do fit inside there. And the battery itself, the 2 AA battery, will be on the inside. So you'll have to remove the top and get inside and just replace those batteries whenever you're doing it. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, and I'm real happy. You know, like I had said too, I mean, I don't want to do commission builds as a general rule, not because I'm against them, but it becomes like a job as opposed to me just building what I want to build and enjoying what I want to build. But if it's a subject that I really like, that was one of the big contributing factors to this. Well, one, that Kevin wanted me to build one, and he really had talked to me about it back when I built my first one. He had mentioned it, and we had kind of tossed around the idea a bit for a while, and then last year he decided to go ahead and do that. And but I wanted to build this kit again and be able to build it better, and plus also use the really awesome new versions of interiors that weren't available when I built mine. When I built mine, it was only a few months after it had come out. And at that time, when it first came out, there were no interior kits at all. And I had to wait a few months before the Paragraphics was available. And I ended up using the Paragraphics pod bay and cockpit interior. It was the only ones available. And the green strawberry didn't become available till I think later that year. It was 2018. And by that time, I had already built mine, so I wasn't going to go back and redo it. But having seen that, I was always interested in going back and building this kit again. And I'm really happy with how it's turning out. I really like how the painting far superior to my first one, which is understandable. As the more you work and the more you do something, the better you get at it, the more you hone your skills. I do credit the first build of the Discovery for beginning to hone my airbrushing skills. Prior to that, I didn't airbrush much at all because I just wasn't good at it at all. And doing the first Discovery, I had to get better because it was a lot of airbrushing. And so just doing that much of it, it really starts to give you a little more confidence, become a little better at it. But in the meantime, obviously, in the 3 years since, I've done a lot more airbrushing, so I've become much more proficient, which I really like how it turned out on this new version. And I learned from some mistakes. If you build this kit, if you use this masking set, one of the things I would definitely recommend is do not overblend. Just stop when it looks like it's not done and just let it sit. Come back to it, look at it with fresh eyes after you've let it sit for a while, and then you'll start to realize that's the way it should be. I'm not going any further, because you should see distinct panels, but when you're far away, it just looks like a light gray ship. When you get closer, you start to make out the various panels. Oh, be quiet, phone. I don't need an Amber Alert. And it's interesting too, because what I've heard about the film is that he used some really bright studio lights on the 50-foot model, or however long it is, and so it did tend to make it look more just like a light gray. And yeah, I agree, Mark. It is hard to believe it's been 3 years since I built that in early 2018. And I've noticed too on this one, if I take pictures of it at different angles and different lights, sometimes it just looks gray and you don't make out the panels. And when you change it to other light, it brings it out. It's really interesting. Yeah, Kevin, it just scared my cat. She went running off. Poor little Mocha. She got scared by it. Uh, it wasn't me, I promise. I'm doing a video. I'm innocent. Yeah, no, it's Frank. Frank is missing. Frank has gone missing. Poor Frank. He got the bad end of the stick in that film. Poor Frank. One of the things I will mention this, and some people bring this up. I mean, Kubrick was fantastic as far as trying to keep some realism in his, portrayal of space travel and things like that. But one of the things, everybody did this back then. When Dave had him in the claws, and he decided he had to let him go because he had to come in through the airlock, and he didn't have to let him go, really. And let him go, then he would just continue on that same velocity. He wouldn't change velocity. He wouldn't suddenly just fly off into the distance. So I don't know why they showed that. But there's a couple of things like that in Kubrick's film. A couple of things he did on purpose, like this. I'm really excited about the upcoming Ares 1B model, which has a full interior from Mobius, which I'm really excited to get here. Hopefully by the end of this year, early next year, and build. But a lot of people have asked about, we see the scene where the stewardess, she goes into the elevator, and we know that the passenger section is horizontal to the ship, if the ship were sitting down on its landing legs. So she goes in the center elevator. They show it. It looks like the light goes up, so we obviously know she's going up. And then she gets out of the elevator. Oh, and we see the light of the elevator come up in the middle part, which obviously is like a galley. She comes off the elevator. She picks up 2 trays of meals for the pilots, which we know are straight up. The cockpit window is right on top. We know that. She walks back, and he wants to demonstrate that she can walk on her Velcro shoes and basically go upside down, but she wouldn't go upside down. If she went upside down, which she does, and walks to the left, she's going to go to the left side of the ship, which they then immediately show the door open to the cockpit, and she walks into the cockpit. They're not on the left side of the ship. So I read a few articles on that. It seems like he kind of did that on purpose. He wanted to disorient us in a way to give you the idea that in space everything's disoriented. But really, she should have walked until she was horizontal and then walked straight up. That would have made more sense into the cockpit. So same thing with the cockpit on the Discovery. No sensible reason to have the seats in the cockpit 45 degrees facing down, so they're looking up out of the cockpit window. Why would you have a cockpit window if you had to look up out of it? It doesn't make any sense. But again, he didn't do it in order to say it was convenient, because everything else other than the centrifuge in the Discovery is set on a horizontal plane. So the pod base horizontal with the hallway, with all those things. So he wanted to show the idea that you could have Dave in the back hallway standing where we look at normally, and then Frank is standing 45 degrees facing us, just to kind of show you that there's no gravity, so it wouldn't be affected that way. But there's not much sense in designing your cockpit that way. It would have been much more sensible to keep it on the horizontal. So, okay. All right. So let me try one more thing. When I've shown pictures before, and I've shown videos before. My original build is up on the wall of my apartment, and I have some pictures, some photos. There we go. There's my original Discovery and my Space Clipper, and I just have some printed out images that I got off of the internet behind them in some frames. How they're in the middle, obviously. So once I complete this current build, the easiest way for me to show it off on this type of a live stream would be to just take down mine and hang it up there. I can just go up and move the camera around and it'll be easy to display it. So what I want to do is just try that out with my original one and just kind of show off my original one. So let's go take a look at that. I'm just going to set my laptop up on the little shelf up here, and then I'll be able to move the camera around. Just a second here. Okay, there we go. All right. And obviously this is backwards, so okay, so there's the back of the ship. And you can see I just took a space background off of the internet, and I took some images of Jupiter and its moons and just had them printed out on a large size at a local print shop, since my printer wouldn't be able to do that. Hold on a second, let me untangle this. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay. Oh, and there's my space clipper. And that's also from Mobius. Yeah, Kevin, I am still working on that. I've been playing with that a little bit recently. I'm getting better at it. I pretty much have it done. It's going to be shaped like the obelisk, the monolith, and it's going to have like a raised part that looks like HAL, and it's just going to say 2001: A Space Odyssey at the top, and then Discovery XD-1 or X-Way Delta 1 at the bottom. So I'm still playing with it, but yeah, I'm still working on doing that. Kind of put my hand in the 3D creation department. So, all right. So let me come over here. Hold on. Let me turn the laptop so I can see what I'm doing. Sorry. Okay. All right. And there's Jupiter and its moons. So I tried to make them in a scale that kind of showed that they were still en route to Jupiter, that Jupiter wasn't. That's why Jupiter is much smaller than the rest of the moons, which it really isn't, obviously. So right now I'm just, and I know it's not in any kind of real scale. It really wouldn't be showing all of the moons like that. Okay, so there is my Discovery. And on this one, I put the sensor right there. That little dark spot is the sensor. Put some fresh batteries in there. There we go. Okay, and again, that's going to get washed out. Dim that down a bit. There we go. Okay. And I also have a pod. This is not, I'm not sure if this one is from Falconware. I don't know if he made that one 3 years ago. I will tell you that this original pod did not have hollowed out headlights, so I had to use a pin vise to drill those out myself. It was hollow. The actual pod was hollow. But it did not have fiber optic channels, which the new ones do, which makes it a whole lot easier. And there's the cockpit. pod bay. Sorry, I'm kind of looking over at the laptop, which is like a couple feet away, and moving the camera. So I apologize for the shakiness and the being all over the place, but there we go. Okay, and you can see, so the paneling is still, it's still good on my original. I'm not against it, but it's nowhere near as distinct as the new one, which I think turned out a whole lot better. Same with on the spine, not as distinct. Let's see if I can recreate the famous famous tracking shot. Here's Hal watching over it. Yeah, I know, I'm terrible at doing tracking shots, filming. Yeah. Actually, the movie was kind of, oh, hey there, Kenny. How you doing? Since you just joined us here, Kenny, this is my original Discovery that I built about 3 years ago, hanging up on my wall. This is kind of a test video. I might tap your expertise on doing streams since you've done it before. I know you use programs to do it. I just did it straight through YouTube, but I had a lot of problems with it. I'm planning on doing a live stream of my final reveal of my new build, which I'll just put up on the wall here in place of my original temporarily to check it out. But maybe I can tap your expertise at some point over the next week or so to figure out what I did wrong. But there is my original. Here's all my other models on the wall, hanging up on some shelves. I have a lot cluttered on the front right now until I put them in some other places for the time being. Thanks, Kenny. I appreciate it. Bella and Mary, I'm not sure what you mean. You don't have to donate to me. I don't even know there's an option to donate, but I appreciate it anyway. Thanks for joining my live stream. I appreciate it. And I might play with it a little while too when I over the next week until I do the final live stream. Let me go ahead and bring the computer back down. 1 second here. Sorry about that. There we go. All right. Oh yeah, you're probably right, Mark. I don't know how they would know that I was responding to it. All right, so definitely a choppy live stream. I'll play with it and get better at it. I'm not sure. The biggest issue that I had, Kenny, I don't know if it's a simple answer. I set the live stream yesterday to show that it was going to be happening today at 3, and then once it came to time, I could find no way anywhere to start it. There was no option on my computer. There was no option on my phone. I don't know how you start the live stream at that point. And every time I went in, it just said it was waiting on me. But I didn't know how to get it started, so I just started a whole new live stream and didn't continue the one that I had scheduled. So if you have a quick answer as to what I was missing, where was there a switch or something to make that happen? That part was kind of strange. Other than that, I mean, obviously you're used to buffering. I think next time when I do it, I'm going to connect an Ethernet cable into my computer. I have some of those, but right now I'm choosing Wi-Fi. Ethernet would be faster and more consistent, so that shouldn't be a problem. So again, here is the pod or the command sphere with the pod sticking out. I've got my lower remote control. Turn it on. There we go. A little pod on it, lit up. Here we go. Here's the pod coming over the ding, 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 ding. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Pretend like the pod is coming over the top of the sphere. Thanks, Eddie. I appreciate it. There's the airlock. This airlock is really cool too because this was a part of the Stargazer interior, which again, I wish it was available for other people. It's a fantastic kit, but it had a resin piece, cast resin piece. You just cut out the one that they had nothing there. It was just blank, and you glue it in, and so it has a lot more. It's inset and it has the ridges and the detail, and then some fiber or some photo etch on either side for the controls. Yeah, I knew you used some kind of software, Kenny, so I wasn't sure if you knew. I may try to download that. Somebody else, my friend Jimmy had suggested that, using that instead. It probably gives me some better options. And do you still get the, are you still able to just go live? Well, obviously you can go live on the one that you scheduled because that obviously happens when you do it. I'm just surprised that YouTube, I know there's a way to do it. Maybe I'll Google it and try to see, but it was not the easiest way to go about it. I'm going to try, hopefully it will save this video for me or give me an option when I'm done to save it. And I'm going to try to do that for people that weren't able to see the whole thing. Uh-oh. Now it's telling me that the chat disconnected and it's waiting to reconnect. So hopefully you can still hear me. Sorry for the choppiness. Like I said, I'll definitely connect my Ethernet. I have good internet. I usually get uploads and downloads. Well, downloads in the couple hundred range and uploads definitely like 30 to 40. But the Wi-Fi, I'm sure, is weaker. Telling me it's trying to reconnect. Okay, it says successfully connected. Oh, okay. Well, that explains it, Kenny. Well, but you okay, maybe not. Yeah, I guess I understand what you're saying. Maybe I won't do that. Maybe I won't schedule it. But yeah, but I know you run into some problems, Kenny, with it just not notifying people. I've seen that do it with me too, which is kind of a pain. Good old YouTube. So maybe I'll still schedule one in the future when I'm ready to do it to let people know it's coming, and then just put in the comments that I'll be starting a fresh one when I begin it. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. I want to work on it a little bit more and kind of play with it a bit to get a little better at it and do it. But yeah, it looks like this camera that I have here is going to work really well to be able to show that. I may try to. I'll probably have to get some more light up on the model on the wall in order to illuminate it better, so it looks better in the camera lens. So you'll be able to do it that way. So here. Okay. But I don't see any reason why I shouldn't be able to get this finished up in the next few days or even this weekend. Since all I have to do is finish up the pod bay, get the wiring all trimmed down and combined together, fix any kind of shorts or anything, and get it inside the pod. Everything else is done. The spine is done. The propulsion unit is all done. So there won't be a lot of things that you're going to have to do, Kevin, when you get it. Primarily, the only thing really is I'm going to have the two halves of the spine separated so that they're shorter for shipping. You'll just have to glue it together in the middle, which obviously you'll be able to do. Just make sure that it's the right orientation. The sphere connects with magnets, and these three little aluminum tubes just go into three little holes in the spine. The propulsion unit also connects with magnets, really simple. So I'm not sad it's almost finished. It's almost finished. Well, I love finishing models. It's always exciting when the model finishes. It's always like one of those really exciting points. But I'll be glad to see it all completed and all together and see how it looks. And I'll be excited to get it out to you and you can see it live. So none of the video or pictures I've taken can do it justice. You seeing it live is going to blow your mind. And I'm not being bragging or anything, but it's not. It's going to be far different than what you're going to see in any pictures that I can take. I try to take some pictures, but it's never going to do it justice. Oh, okay, that makes sense, Kenny. Is that the same thing as timing it, setting it for a certain time? Because I didn't really see an option for a delay. Or you just had a way to, because you always have that little image in the background playing music. I'll have to kind of play with it and see what the options are to do. But as I was saying, Kevin, so other than gluing the two halves of the spine together, attaching the front and the back with magnets, I probably won't put batteries in it, so you'll have to take the top off to put on the external pod like I showed earlier in the video, and I'll show that in my final video as well. No, it doesn't, but it is removable. So I created it so it can move. So here is the front half of the spine. So all it has in the center is the stainless steel tube. So you would just use 5-minute epoxy or CA glue, probably 5-minute epoxy, and you'll glue that into this part. And there's actually there's a little knob, a little keyed part on the end of this that matches up with that little keyed part right there. So all you would do is put some in there, do something slow acting like 5-minute epoxy, because otherwise you have to position it. So, and you'll see too that the grooves at the top have to line up with the one in the back. And then you'll just glue it together and you'll have the whole ship. And there's your magnets and your 3 holes that line up with the back of the sphere. It's pretty easy. So the back, this collar is held on with magnets, and they're pretty strong. So get a nice grip on it. It comes loose, and it really is just a little hole in there and some styrene, easy to line up this, put it in, and then the magnets will hold it together. It's a little bit of a little snug fit for the collar to snap on around the edge, and it goes on pretty easily. Now the antenna array is removable. So if you want to glue it on, you can. All it does is just go into those 2 little notches. So you have the 2 little, focus, 2 little nubs that go down into that. And it's like a rounded, this part is rounded, it matches up with the rounded part of this, so that just goes right into it. So you can glue it on if you want, or you can just, it doesn't snap in place, but it does go in fairly snugly. So it's not going to fall out per se, but you might want to glue it in. And then it rotates around 360 degrees. It goes up and down. So yeah, you might want to glue this on, because if it fell off and you didn't see it, it's easy. It's pretty fragile. You don't want to break it. But I will detach this when I ship it, so I protect it. So yeah, you'll just have to glue this on and glue the 2 halves of the spine together. And then obviously the this goes on by magnets. Yeah, you pretty much would have to, because this kit being so long, it's going to sag in the middle if you don't have that attached. Now you'll have it up on, if you put it up on the wall in the brackets I give you, it would be okay. But if you put it on the stands, no, it would not work. It would sag and have some problems. So I would glue them together. It would be problematic if you didn't. So obviously this just goes into here, and you line that up with the pins. Come on, get in there. And that's held on by magnets as well. So that's nice. Now what I would say is, however you display this, if you need to take off the top of the sphere and get in and change the batteries or anything, take the whole sphere off. Don't try doing it attached to the model. It's just going to be too fiddly. So you would take the whole sphere off of the kit. and that way you can just work on it. And these magnets are fairly strong, so they hold it in place, but they're easy to remove. It's not that difficult. But I would, but yeah, I would definitely glue the antenna array on. I would glue the two halves together in the middle, because that's going to be rather problematic if you don't. Is the detailing on the spine. The batteries are going to be in the sphere. So you're going to have to take the top of the command sphere off in order to get to the batteries and replace them. There's going to be a AA battery holder, a 2 AA battery holder. And it'll have enough wire that's loose. So when you take the top off, you'll just pull out the battery holder, replace put batteries in it, pop it back in, and you're ready to go. Put the top back on. And then if you want to connect up the external pod and put that on it, you'll do that as well once you have it taken apart, that kind of thing. Now, I will tell you, and it's not a big deal, but if you keep the batteries in the kit, you keep it off. They'll last for several weeks or months even, but eventually the power leaches out of them. The only way to stop that is I'll leave a switch on the inside of the sphere that you can turn on and off manually. If you turn off the switch, it doesn't complete a circuit, and so it won't kill the batteries as much. Or you'll just have to replace the batteries from time to time. But if you were to leave it on, I mean, it would probably kill the batteries in a few days. So you really can't leave it powered on all the time. It's not going to, there's a lot of LEDs, like I said, like 27. It's going to eventually kill the 2 AA batteries if you leave it on constantly. But with the remote, the nice thing about the remote is you can just power it on when you want to look at it and turn it back off without getting into it. And not have to worry about it. Thanks, Kevin. So you just want to, now, obviously, like I said, you can change out a lot of these things. I wouldn't be in the habit of doing it that much, only because obviously we're dealing with some delicate things like this pod. You don't want to fiddle with this as much as you can, because you could break something on it. On my original one, I broke the arms off like 3 times. Mostly in transporting it, and had to glue them back on again. I finally ended up using photo etch because it was such a pain. So the same thing, like taking the top off and on, you're running a risk potentially of doing little paint chips here and there. So don't do it that often if you don't have to, but you certainly can. But obviously you want to set it up the way you want to display it and just kind of leave it as it is and turn it on when you want to look at it. Yeah, so same thing. And I'm sure your pod had a lot of lights too, so it would probably drain batteries on it unless you use the external adapter. So, which some people do on this kit, but then you have to have a jack somewhere and wires coming down from it wherever you're displaying it. So I always like doing batteries if I can, and being able to make that a lot easier and compact. So. All right. Yeah, and like I said, I will printed brackets that I got off of Thingiverse. I'm letting other people know. They're free. As far as I know, they're still available. I haven't checked, but they're really cool. I painted them flat black as well, so they blend in nicely with the space background, so you can't see them. And they have like a triangular shape with a stem coming up and a little hook that just fits really nicely in between the spine, like right here, the one right in front of this, and then the one right behind the command sphere, and it just sits right on it, which supports it nicely. And then you have 3 screw holes in the triangular part that's flat against the wall, and I just screwed them into the picture, which has a wooden frame, which just goes which is attached to the wall. So that was a nice way to display it and put it up on the wall. Also, I have a magnet in the bottom of the propulsion unit and a corresponding magnet in the kit part that clips onto it. And I have a magnet in the bottom of the sphere and a corresponding magnet, again, in the kit part that supports that. I don't have a magnet in the centerpiece because it's just so tiny, there's really no place to put one. But it would still sit on it. You would still use the center support. And then you could display it by sitting on those displays as well. So let me know. What I was thinking, Kevin, is I would paint the kit part that attaches onto the kit. I would paint that the same gray as the kit so it blends in, but I would paint the metal tube and the bottom platform part flat black. So same thing, if you want to sit it on those behind with a black background, they would blend in. So thanks, Scott. I appreciate it. Scott's actually one of my neighbors. So we got to know each other, and then he got interested in my videos and started watching them. So Scott has the enviable position of seeing a lot of these things live even before the rest of you see them, because obviously he's my neighbor. So, you know, you going past and I'm like, hey buddy, come on up, let me show you my latest thing that I finished up. So he gets the benefit of seeing it close up and seeing how it actually looks live without seeing it in photos. So, but yeah, so that's what I'll probably do, Kevin. I'll just paint those flat black, and those will be ready to go. They'll be glued together, so they'll be easy. They'll be ready to go. Just set them up. So really, other than those few things I told you, you'll be able to just stick it right on the display, and it'll be ready to go when you get it, and just pop it on there, and get that going. So 18 minutes, so I'll probably wrap this up here shortly. Appreciate anybody coming. Appreciate showing up for this so I can test it out and see how it's going to work. I'll imagine, like I said, I'll play with some of these things to try to make it a little bit better for the second time around. I will be releasing, and I'm already filming it, one more video, which I will call the finale, and I'll be talking about wiring in and getting in the cockpit, and also finishing up the pod bay and getting that wired in, and showing the video as I do it, and put those in there. But I will save the final reveal, and I'll probably just release that shortly before, like the same day before I do the finale on a live stream. And then I'll just do the final reveal on a live stream, which also should be recorded so people can come back and watch that at the end, and then show the final reveal of the kit, of the model in all its glory. So very excited about that, and very happy to get it all done and get it all finished up. Yeah, Kevin works at Hobby Lobby, which I'm a little envious of. Not necessarily that I want to work there, but he gets some benefits of getting a discount and such things. I love Hobby Lobby. I go there all the time, and I pick up their things and use their things for a lot of different purposes. It's a great place to get a lot of hobby supplies. I'm also very fortunate to have a local hobby shop still. It's a small one. He does have a fairly decent set of models, but mainly because I can get a lot of my modeling supplies, like my paints and glues and other things like that. Yeah, there you go, Mark. Get a little part-time job there. But yeah, I still have a local. I believe he's been able to survive because he sells a lot of RC things, remote control. That's his biggest business. Every time I go in there, he's showing somebody a car or a boat or something or a helicopter. Those things are hundreds of dollars. People throw in, literally, I guarantee they throw thousands of dollars into those things. Thanks, David. I appreciate it. Yep, definitely stay tuned. Just kind of let you know some things coming up. And they're still in the planning stages. One of my subscribers asked if I would want to do a buddy build with him. He builds paper models, which I'm familiar with. I've seen them. I haven't done anything really extensive in them, but he wants to do a build of the Star Wars AT-ST walker, the chicken walker. So he's going to build a paper model, which is really large from what I understand. And I'm going to build the Bandai version, the larger one, not the little teeny one, but the larger. I think it's 142, 172, something like that. But I'm going to build that one in a little mini diorama. And he's going to build the paper version, and we're going to do a buddy build. So he'll show on his channel his version, and I'll show mine, and we'll get together and talk and that kind of thing. Augie Gonzalez, we've done buddy builds before, and he's asked me recently if, and again, no set time or anything, so I'm not trying to put him on the spot or anything, but we had talked about, and he wants to do a buddy build of the latest version of the Star Trek shuttlecraft, the new one, the nicely done one that has an interior. We're building an interior. They didn't make one from round 2, but there was, I don't know if it's still available, but Randy Cooper made a resin version, really, really nice version of the interior for the shuttlecraft. So we're going to be using that and building that up in our own ways. So that's something possibly down the road. I definitely, as soon as it becomes available, I definitely want to build the Ares 1B. That's one of my always wanted kits that has not been released. I do have the Stargazer version, which I haven't built yet. I've thought about it several times. A lot of challenges in that one for different reasons, but I'm really excited about the Mobius version, especially since they've shown the full interior and announced it. It's going to be fantastic, and that will be lit up, obviously. That up. Yeah, the Astronaut 2. I definitely want to see that when that comes out, and the new Space Clipper, the very large Space Clipper with a full interior. That's just incredible. I really love what Mobius is doing. I'm really encouraged by the fact that they have really, changed up their game. Because, oh, thanks, Kenny. Yeah, 148 on the Bandai. Okay, that's the one I'm building. It's pretty sizable. But one of the big complaints about the Discovery is that they didn't put an interior in it. There was no reason they couldn't have. No reason they could not have made a plastic styrene interior. It would have been super simple. I would have even been fine if they made a separate kit that was the Discovery interior and make a cockpit. It wouldn't have been hard to do. But obviously they changed hands, so they're not owned anymore by the original owners of Mobius. They're now owned by what used to be or still is. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Space Clipper, and obviously, and both of those full interior, which just blows my mind. Okay, it says I'm unconnecting again, so if I am, bear with me. They're the ones that released the pod, the giant pod, with the full interior. Maybe it wasn't Pegasus. I'm not sure. Then I know that Mobius was purchased by another existing model company. Yeah, they really upped their game. We knew that the Ares was coming. We knew the Astronaut was coming. We didn't know that the Space Clipper was coming. And we didn't know that there was going to be an interior to the Ares 1B, which is a big kit. It's gonna be like this big. So, but they just announced that recently. So very happy with what they're doing. Very happy. What I'd love to see, which hopefully maybe they'll do, is a larger, more accurate moon bus. Because again, the original Aurora or original Mobius moon bus, highly inaccurate interior, which everybody knows. Yeah, I know, Mark, but you know what? If it's the stuff I love, obviously I'm a big fan of 2001, as you can tell. Um, I'll fork out the $200, the 250, if you give me a big size moon bus that has a full interior that's accurate and that's designed the way it ought to be. And you know, I would pay for a larger scale Spindrift from Land of the Giants with an accurate interior, which nobody's ever. Well, yeah, nobody's done an accurate interior. Mobius did the accurate exterior with the proper teardrop dome and that sort of thing, but yeah, they need to do the moon bus over again and do it right and make a nice kit that's accurate, and I would pay for that. But yeah, by all means, I will gladly pay 200. Oh, I thought they did, Kenny. Yeah, they did. Okay, so I think you're right, Kevin. There still are some Pegasus kits that are separate, but they are now Mobius. So they bought out, I thought it was Pegasus. They bought out Mobius about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and took over operations. I don't know if they are still making models under the Pegasus. They still have models available that are from Pegasus. I don't know if they're still producing new things and calling it Pegasus. I think that they are just possibly, maybe some of their other properties would still be under it. Like I know they do the War of the Worlds, and those properties are under Pegasus. Terminator, I believe, they do their Pegasus things. Yeah. Oh, where you going at the end of the month, Kevin? But yeah, I mean that's so a lot of exciting things coming out. One other thing I've really been thinking a lot about lately and really kind of wanting to get back into, and I've had several people ask me about it. Um, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, definitely. I know, Kevin. That's cool about Pegasus. Um, but I've had a lot of people ask me about my Borg Discovery, which I'm still going to complete at some point. I have a lot of it completed, actually. A lot of the main superstructure is mostly done, other than like the propulsion unit, which I haven't done a lot on, but even the spine is mostly done, and the front is a lot done. The thing about the Borg Discovery is that because it is almost entirely scratch built and kit bashed on top of the existing kit, is that it is really time intensive. I could spend several hours or days or even a week on doing one little teeny section that I'm going to put onto the command sphere. Now, that's another situation where I'm benefiting from my honed skills over the years, that I've gotten a lot better at a lot of these things. And so I'm kind of feeling like I can go back and re-tackle that. I stopped building it. It would have been, I guess, 2019, I'm thinking, or early 2020 or 2020. But there was no way back then when there was still going to be a Wonderfest in 2020, which there wasn't, of course, I wouldn't have had enough time to complete it. So I went ahead to some other things to work on those. But no, actually, it had to have been early 2019, because I remember I went to the IPMS Nationals in Tennessee in 2019 in August, and I took the pieces of it because I did a presentation on using aftermarket parts and things like that. So it wasn't done then. Yeah, I stopped building it in early 2019. Yeah, that's true, Malcolm. A lot of people would like to see that, and also the Leonov, which would be great. A model kit of the Leonov in scale with the Discovery from Mobius would be great. One other thing which somebody else mentioned and they've never done is the Space Station 5 or Space Station D. That would be fantastic. So I would love to see that. Probably I would love to see that next before the moon bus, because I would love to see a styrene kit of the complete space station with, you know, the little ribbing with the parts that aren't done yet, a tiny little in scale space clipper for it. They're also bringing out, they already have announced a 1/350 space clipper, which is really small, which I'm not sure why they picked 1/350 other than it's in scale with the small scale Discovery, which is 1/350. But other than that, I don't know why, unless maybe they're planning a 1/350 space station, but that would be pretty sizable. If this, well, I don't know, it would be big, but that would be one I would love to see, as well as the space station would be great if they would bring that out in a styrene kit. So that's another big one that they could do, or the ones from 2010, as Malcolm mentioned, the TTOV, which we only really see, I believe, in a model somewhere. I think we do. Don't we see a model of the TTOV in somewhere? I can't remember now. Might be maybe in 2010 probably, or it might have been on the space station in the first 2001. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure there's somewhere that we see that. But yeah, I am considering at some point I may go back to the Borg Discovery, but that's still a long-term build regardless. It just, there's a lot involved in it, and so that would be a background build while I'm building something else and working on something else. So, okay, all right. Any other questions or anything anybody else would like to add? Really appreciate you all turning out for my first live stream. Yeah, and I would like to too, Kevin. I really liked the idea when I first did it. I started because when I went to, let me just think a second. When I went, it must have been the 2019 Wonderfest. When I went to the 2019 Wonderfest, no, it couldn't have been. It had to have been 2018. I keep trying to think of the time frame. There was, yeah, that's right, because 2018 is when I took my original Discovery to Wonderfest. So there was a very large version of the Discovery from a company. What was their name again? I just had it at the tip of my tongue. If I think of it, it was a company from Japan, and they had a version of it there. They were talking about releasing a very accurate, very large version of the Discovery, Kyoto, and they were going to have a high-end version that was like $10,000 or some ridiculous sum, which they would pre-build, whatever. And they were going to have a styrene version and other versions. And it was fantastic. It was amazing. I mean, I would love to have gotten one of those. And they were saying, oh, by the end of the year. It never materialized. I think the expensive version, I think their plan was that they were going to make the expensive version, which I think they did, and sell this thing for like high-end $10,000 or some really high price to high-end collectors, and then they would finance their other things with the sales from this. Well, I don't think it panned out, and it was interesting because at that time, the head guy of Mobius, or the owner of Mobius, his name escapes me at the moment, I'm sorry, he was actually working with them. And so it looked like something that was going to happen because he was talking about it and that kind of thing. But so that was going to be one of my next builds coming up. And then when that fell through and it wasn't going to happen, I didn't know what else I was going to do. I built my space clipper after that Wonderfest. But that's when I decided to just try something different. And I found a Discovery for a reasonable price. I think it got for like $120, which was really a good price at that time, and decided to just mock up my own Borg Discovery. Um, and the interior, most of the interior was made for me by Carl Darby, which I had talked about earlier. He's a friend on Facebook that does fantastic 3D printing of things. So he was able to make that for me. And so I am thinking very strongly of returning to that. Yeah, Larry. I can't think of his last name, but he's since retired. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's not. He was the head of Mobius before Pegasus bought them. He retired. He sold the company. So he sold the company to Pegasus, um, and then he retired. He's not in the model business anymore. But Larry might be one of the guys in Pegasus. I'm not sure. Yeah, I saw that one, Malcolm. I've thought about buying it from time to time. My only downside on it is that it's some really thick, solid resin pieces. It would be really hard to try to light it, and then you have a lot of photo etch making up that what do you call it, the uncompleted part. So, but that is kind of the only one I've ever seen that is of the Space Station 5. But hopefully Mobius will understand the value of that and make that one in the Stargate kit. Because again, that would be pretty simple. It would be a simple kit. They could even include like a sensible interior inside that you could see inside, and maybe put some lights in it to show it, and then have the little space clipper approaching it and that sort of thing. That'd be pretty obvious, pretty awesome. Yeah, it isn't that much. It's only 125. So yeah, I didn't know it was small. I haven't really seen one. I've seen pictures of one, but I haven't seen it. I've seen some people building it, but I've thought about possibly getting that at some point. Um, I think that's only through Monsters in Motion. Oh, you do have that one, Kevin. Oh, okay. Is it fairly small? Because that's another one of those kits that. Oh, okay. That's what I thought. So that's the first 2001. So that one is where they showed it, and then later on we get more of a background about it, or more of a backstory of it. So okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, the thing about the space station is the main central hub of it would long, rounded parts on the outside. It would extend it out and make it a bigger kit. So it would have to be a smaller scale if you're going to keep it to, like, maybe like something like this size, a reasonably sized model that most people could display. But Mobius certainly isn't shying away from the really big jump. That's for sure. So we'll have to see if they can bring that out and put that, keep bringing our dreams together. So all right, well, let me just do one more thing here, and then then we're going to go ahead and call it a day. Let me put this all together, and I'll show you how the ship looks together. Get in there. Come on, you can do it. Yeah, the only tricky part about attaching the front is that you're not only doing the centerpiece, but you're doing the three little parts for the tubing, just to give it a little more support. So it's a matter of lining those up. Sorry about this. Alan. All right. I'm having some trouble with that, so we're not going to try to force it in there. I don't want to damage anything. But these are aluminum tubes, so they can bend a little bit. Come on. Of course, I had no trouble before, but when I tried doing it on camera, suddenly I'm getting a problem with it. All right, sorry. There we go. Okay. So this is not going to all be on camera, obviously, but I just have to hold these together. So there's the entire ship. Uh-oh. Careful. And if it's leaving your line of sight. Okay. So definitely a very long kit. And obviously the reason why I want to keep the spine separate so I can ship it, because it'll cut in half the size of it. And then plus. All right. Well, thanks again to everybody for coming to my live stream. I appreciate it. Stay tuned. I'll be going ahead, like I said, and finishing up the pod bay and getting it in the kit, doing my last video on this build, and then getting ready for a live stream to reveal the final model. All right, well, thank you to everybody. I appreciate it. Hopefully, I'm able to save this video. If you want to go ahead and check it out, and if you missed any parts. So, thanks, David. I appreciate you coming. And like I said, once I get a little better at it, maybe I'll use it for these purposes. I like the idea of a live stream to reveal, like, the final finale, just because it's really good to be able to interact. It's nice being able to talk to my subscribers and fellow modelers and just interact that way. That's always really cool. And answer any questions. It's always nice doing it in comments too, and certainly I answer all of my comments. Everybody leaves. I don't get a ton of them, unless somebody's just rude or ignorant, which isn't very often. But I appreciate it, and I will see you all in the next live video. Have a great day, everybody.